Good morning, Copenhagen. It's nice to see you. I hope I'm not screaming too loud into the microphone. It's all good? That's amazing. Oh, well, it started already. Well, I wanted to save you that picture for 10, 15 seconds from now. Well, so here we are. This year is, I think, my 20-year anniversary on giving my first speech about health, about longevity, about some of this holistic health approach and topics. And I was, on stages and in the television and podcasts around the world and worked with some of the best experts in the world on radiation protection, on hydrogen, water, on all of those topics. And I was becoming friends with many of my speaker colleagues, and they asked me like, Hagen, what is going on? Like, why are you still having overweight when actually you know so much about health? Like, are you doing sports? Yes, I was doing 4 times a week sport. Yes, I was actually knowing how to eat right. I knew a lot about health. I knew a lot about hormones. I did all my research, and still I had the problems with losing weight. And apparently I'm not the only one, because 50.6% of people in the age of 16 and over in the European Union have overweight or obesity. So, and last year in May, I was going on a journey after selling WaveGuard, and my speaker colleague said like, okay, Hagen, this is not anymore funny. Like, we gotta get you in shape. We're gonna find this out. And so I had some of the world's best biohackers and friends and experts to say, okay, share all your data with me, share all your health data, share all your steps, share all your food, what is going on, and we're gonna guide you through step by step. So in this last 18 months, I lost over 60 kilos and been going through quite some transformation. And I think it's everybody's dream who is having a problem with overweight or who wants to become more fit and more vital and build some muscles to actually have some of the, greatest speakers and experts in the world take you under their personal wing and where it starts. Because there are so many hacks out there, what we can do, and sometimes it's hard to know where to start. So this is going to be, I guess, today my most personal talk. I hope I'm not getting too far off track, but I'm going to give you a little bit of my story, and I hope you're going to take quite some of the hacks away for you as well, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. So I was already having to go back to my childhood, basically, that I was growing up in Germany, and I was like 13 kilometers away from my school, which I was going by bicycle to every morning and every afternoon. In the afternoon, I would drive back into the city and go to martial arts or to some exercises and sports. And so I was already pretty active back then, and having already just like on an average week, 80 kilometers of biking to just come around and go to sport. And then with 13 years, I started with my father researching conductive liquids, going into this health part and into the research part already with the universities in Italy and in Germany, visiting researchers and starting my research there with him on how to protect people against radiation. Well, my mom and my dad, they actually had at this time already quite a crazy divorce going on. So I was just 13 and I was already starting to work. So my mom wasn't quite happy about that and a bit concerned that I was starting to skip some school days to actually go to some other things. And my father was actually supporting me. Both were loving, but in the end, this custody fight over me, that both wanted the custody over me, went completely out of hand, and they both lost custody to the state, which took me away from home. And I wasn't anymore allowed to live with one of them. So maybe one could say I did what anybody would do, but as more as I tell the story, I start to notice it's not what everybody did, but I went off. I took the things which I had and didn't come back for 3 years. So when you're going as a 14-year-old, hitchhiking across Europe for around 30,000 kilometers, taking up a different identity, a different name, and going into any kinds of jobs to come around, then you're experiencing quite something. And so for me, after going in the first years to Switzerland and Italy and working there pretty hard, I noticed like I was always afraid that the police would catch me and bring me back to, to Germany. So I never put a foot back onto German soil. And so I was thinking, okay, where to go? And so I came to research and I saw like, hey, I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm pretty, independent. I can go to nature. I can take care of myself there. And so I was researching that actually up here in the Scandinavia where I'm speaking now, so it's kind of closest to circle, I guess, we have this everyman's right, you guys call it, right? And so I was researching that and was finding out, okay, I can be here, I can, live here in nature, and nobody is gonna really ask me. Well, and that's what I did. So with 14, I went to Finland and went to the very north, above the polar circle, and then I found there the national parks. And in those national parks, you have these beautiful cottages, which are around like every 10, 15 kilometers apart. And you can stay there if you bring your own backpack, your own food, and you're able to take care of yourself, and you can get there because there's no roads, no electricity, no tap water, no sewage system, but there is a shelter hut. And so I was planning to go there from the south all the way to the north, repack get some groceries again at the middle after 1,000 kilometers and going back. So from January till May. And so I thought, okay, what are you gonna need for 6 weeks of this kind of journey? And money was obviously far to be seen when you're a run-off and a teenager. So I just took myself a sledge and a backpack, and I had there mostly dry things I thought I need, because snow I can melt, I can get food. And so I took oats and rice, some dried soups, so everything which I could make more than adding water, right? And so, but I was still 14, just turning then after a few weeks 15, and there was, 2,500 kilometers snowshoe hiking. The coldest temperature I had was minus 55 degrees Celsius. And obviously you had around 100 kilos of luggage, which you had to carry through that. So it was a pretty intense exercise. And, well, obviously I could tell you now an hour about howling wolves and crashing into lakes and water there, and could sit down and we could all have a tea now, and it would be a fun story. But obviously, this experience changed me, and actually it took many, many years to find out not just what happened to me mentally in that time, but much more it was about actually how that changed my body. And so that's gonna be a little bit the journey, and you're gonna find later out how that's all connected to the weight loss. So, 2 years ago then in London it was when I was speaking there, and when my colleague said like, hey, share your data with me and let's start seeing what's going on. And so I was at the time, I was around 150 kilos, 192, 193 centimeters tall. And so I was doing already 4 times a week exercise. And so you would see there that if you're doing 3-4 times exercise a week like I, that you would have roughly a rate of metabolism, what you burn, of 3,900, 3,960. And so you would think, okay, normally if I would eat less than that, I should lose weight. Well, I ate less than that and I still didn't lose weight. So that was the first problem. And so the guys first of all thought, well, probably you're just gonna eat too much calories, right? Well, it wasn't that. Actually, then you can do something else if you don't trust your calculation. Well, you can measure your metabolism. So this is what happened next, that actually going to the indirect calorimetry. So there you're having a CO2 test and an analysis where you're actually starting to see what are you breathing out, what are you consuming, what are you burning, and how is your metabolism. Well, it turned out I had the slowest metabolism the center ever had registered. Well, which is nice that I'm gonna still look probably in 15 years from now almost the same as now, since, you know, metabolism, higher metabolism means you're aging faster. So it's good for looking still younger, but it doesn't help you in weight gains or with your body composition and too much fat at all. So, and this is, I guess, already where the first cycle is starting to close. Slow or fast metabolism refers to whatever your body burns less or more calories than normal. Long-lasting diets or excessive cardio can slow down your metabolism rate. Well, I started already as a child to have very much excess sport, and then in my teenagehood I had, well, excessive is not anymore the suitable word, it was something a little bit more than that, while being on a very crazy diet. So it turned out this all changed my metabolism and more, but we'll see that in a second. But this is how this looks like. So you're gonna actually see, okay, how much fat are you burning, how much carbs you're gonna burn, and you're gonna also see at which heart rate you're having what sort of consumption and what's your ideal heart rate to actually lose weight, so or to lose fat. So this is something which I was finding out then, okay, you have a very low metabolism, and I was not even allowed to eat basically 1,500 calories, even when being that tall and that active. So it was pretty significant. Well, what else should we measure and analyze? You know, we are having a variety of tools there, and everybody is speaking about this, what we can do and what you should all do if you're trying to get your health on track. So for me, what were the couple of things which we had to do was, the first one, actually the transit time of the gastrointestinal systems. So this is actually was one of the first ones, which then was noticed to be, with me, actually something which was very wrong. So that everything which I consumed stayed much, much longer inside of me than it was supposed to, causing rottenness, causing foulness of food and groceries inside of your gut system, causing a chronic inflammation, which I was carrying undiagnosed for 14 years. And this is obviously also something which was only explainable by my very intensive past in Finland, where I had too little food, too active cardio, and a too active lifestyle for, what, less than 1,000 calories, which I was consuming a day. So the second one, what we did obviously was hormonal works, and the hormonal works, they were fine, and they were checked out. I didn't put a picture up here now, but also any sort of inflammation markers was also in check. I did every 6 months, all my life pretty much. I did a complete blood work, which is thanks to my mom also working in the medical field, and was always handy when I visit her to just do one. So, but also my hormonal checkups and my inflammation markers, they all were okay, and that was also not the reason. So then the next thing, which we were obviously tracking also very much, was the sleep efficiency and time, which is something I very much would recommend to check as well, especially if you want to gain up muscles and you want to recover, then you need to have your sleep knocked down. You know, the typical things of blue light blocking glasses, not anymore the blue light while before sleeping time, some magnesium will help, some grounding, some EMF protection, shutting off Wi-Fi sources. That's pretty good in actually increasing the sleep efficiency and should help you. Well, then we had the indirect calorimetry, which we have passed already. And then the next thing, what was obviously been recommended was to not anymore say, okay, not anymore weigh only or scan your weight, but actually look on your composition and on sizes and on your changes there. so that this is actually something which is gonna help you to really understand what's going on. Also, something which was really, really interesting for me in this regards was glucose and ketone monitoring, continuous monitoring. It's important. I didn't quite put it perfectly here on the spreadsheet or on the foil. But you have nowadays, you have sensors which can measure ketones and also glucose continuously 24 hours. And they directly get to your phone, so you can actually see all the effects of your food on your glucose response and when you are actually burning fat, and in this case losing fat, and how this is interfering with your cardio, and if you're maybe going out of ketosis because you are having a too high intensity of workouts. So this was also something which we were implementing in my daily programs, to always have everything measured on ketones and glucose constantly. Food-wise, something obviously 80% of weight loss and staying fit and gaining muscle is done in the kitchen, so we have to kind of have a focus on that. And something which was really surprising to me is actually how much protein we need. And I was thinking, okay, I had my diet pretty much locked down pretty well already, because I wasn't eating much sugar, I wasn't eating much processed foods, I was always looking, to not have excess calories, having some fiber included and so on. But actually, what really turned out when looking into this was actually the protein. The protein, when you're trying to lose weight, you're usually always also losing muscles. These muscles which you're losing are lowering your metabolism even further down. In my case, nothing which I was striving for. So there was only really one option, which is meaning I need to do that what always was thought to be very impossible, which is losing fat while actually maintaining or building muscles. Well, this is possible, and this is studied. I put a study reference in there for the guys of you who want to actually check this out a little bit more thoroughly. But in basic theory, it's pretty simple, coming straight down to 2.4 grams of protein, which you have to eat per kilo of body per day while you're training. This is, for instance, when we are looking at this for a 75 kilo woman or a 95 kilo male, we're seeing the references. That would be already an equivalent of, for me, for example, 228 grams of protein, which I have to eat in a day, which would be, for example, what? 645 grams chicken and 5 eggs. So you can still eat this amount of protein in one day and still be under a very, very low calorie deficit. So this is what was my pure target. In the end, this was the study which I was choosing to go after with, and this program. 4 times a week exercise, and the diet was always of containing 2.4 grams of protein per day per kilo. Most people underestimate or let's say overestimate how much protein they're consuming. If you're really looking into that, what you need, then most of the time we're finding out we are actually not giving ourselves enough protein, and in the end you're actually losing muscles, and then you're starting to go into this yo-yo cycle. Also, it really much fixes pretty much all of your eating disorders, I would say, because it's very easy to eat 2,000 calories in cookies or in some sweets, but it's very hard to eat 2,000 calories in eggs, for example. You can give it a try, it's most likely gonna fail. So it also helps a lot. Well, then the mental aspect, which was triggered there, was actually preparation was for me the next key. I heard this, I think it was from Arnold Schwarzenegger in a podcast or in an interview or so, but it was really sticking to me, and I hope I quoted it right, but nobody makes a meal plan to become fat. It's the absence of a plan that makes you fat, or that does it. And that one really stuck to me for many years. And I thought it's pretty right? Like we are thinking about, okay, we are having our diet in check and so on. Unless we are on the street, we are traveling and we are hungry and we haven't planned what we are gonna eat in that exact moment. And In theory, it's always great until your brain kicks in and you are catched unprepared. So actually, prep food was then my go-to. So I started to actually build a completely high-protein diet, biohacking optimized, which I cannot go too much into detail today. And but basically, it was the same thing: 80 grams of protein per per portion, and 30 grams of amino acids, which I had to consume. So in order to actually get to those protein levels, and I noticed, okay, this actually does pretty well because it's also really helping to kill the eating disorder, and makes your brain life so much easier. I can really endorse that. If you're not anymore thinking about what do I eat today, but if you're thinking about do I eat box 1, 2, or 3. So it's something which is very much helping, saves you some time and money, and it does a lot. Otherwise, I implemented much more of the fermented foods and kombucha. So the big thing which you see here is like homemade kombucha, something I very much endorse as well. Started to go up to around 2 liters a day of kombucha consumption, which was really starting to actually help the gut health to be massively increased, something I can endorse as well. Gut Health 2.0, the super smoothies, I very much like them. So gut health is not as complicated because you don't need amounts to really heal your gut. So you can take a smoothie with 25 ingredients. Mostly they should be based on fibers and vegetables and variety. And you can make like shots. I take like a 50 to 100 grams shot glass. So I make a smoothie for the first 3-4 days, put it into small 50, 100 milliliter glasses, and take 1 shot a day, and have basically already a complete push-up and again enrichment of the gut flora and microbiome. So it's something which is really good. And then you have the second part of the week, you make a different ingredients with 25 different ingredients, which is again something which is not going to boost up your calories, which is not going to be about having to eat so much variety in its total, because the small little things together, they add up quite well. And you can stay on a diet in the meal prep, which is actually pretty convenient and tasty to yourself. Otherwise, obviously also just a side part of this, resistance training and testosterone enhancement was for me a key. I increased my testosterone by 650% over the last years. So for instance, going only for resistance training and not cardio was something which was definitely helping. Then avoiding plastic bottles would be actually one of them. So is something which you should do as well, because you are getting actually by the particles of the small plastics, you're actually having a huge decreasing in testosterone, which is something most people are not aware of. So plastic bottles are literally dropping the testosterone levels, as well as alcohol and things like that. So losing weight, train hard 4 times a week, 1 hour. It's doable. After around 3-4 weeks, it becomes routine. Then it gets better. The first 3-4 weeks, well, push through. So, but still, honestly, all of those things, they didn't really do in the end the trick. And this is something which I just got also really a crazy insight about during the last days. I spoke with Tim Gray just 2 days ago, and I heard his talk also in London, and he also spoke about this, that he had this infected jawbone which remained undiagnosed and for years. And this is something I think which is a really new message which we have to start to consider, especially people like us here in the room, which have a high health conscience. When we are going to doctors to get analysis of inflammation markers, of diseases and problematic symptoms in our body, we are usually not the sick persons which would have a very clear path of pattern how that would show in blood work and in analysis. Even in Tim's case, it was even that he didn't even see it on an X-ray and on the diagnostic. It was literally only that the infection was only seen after it was cut out. So this is something which I heard now in this case multiple times, and it was with me the same, that I had this undiagnosed gut and bowel disease for actually 14 years, causing huge inflammations inside of my gut. But while I was taking hydrogen water, drinking kombucha, eating fermented foods, taking glutathione IVs to actually boost my immune system, nothing of these problems showed up in my blood work or could be diagnosed. So this is something I think also as a small key message. If you're having a very good, healthy lifestyle already and you're feeling something is wrong, trust your gut instinct and also understand that how that should be diagnosed for an ordinary person may not exactly apply to yourself. Was one of the key takeaways. So listening to the body, and after I was starting to take a year off after selling WaveGuard, I became quite a fan of diving and hyperbaric chambers. And so I started to go diving more and more into deeper depths, and this was something which was really catching for me, that I thought maybe it was in the first place, it was like the silence and not having the phone calls reach you under the water, you know, and this magic environment of being floatless. But actually, the more I went, the more I became addicted. It was like when you're dehydrated, that your body signals you you're thirsty. And this was the same. When you are under pressure and breathing oxygen, then something really crazy is happening. So, let's see. Come on. There we are. So, we're having like, okay, 0.5 ATA when we're flying with an airplane. Come on. Something is broken here with the remote. There we are. So, when we are at sea level, we are breathing 21% of oxygen. And this is what's reaching us. And when we are going deeper, sorry, the remote is starting to make some problems here. So when we are going deeper, actually the pressure increases, and it's basically doubling with each 10 meters our percentage of gas which we are breathing. So in this case, when we're already at 10 meters and we're breathing 21% of air, we are actually getting 42% of oxygen inside of our body. And then at 3, we would be already at 63% of oxygen, which is being pushed inside of our body. In a hyperbaric chamber, this is the same thing happening. We are going for a dive there, and there we are having just a very big difference, which is in the beginning, we are starting with roughly 90% of oxygen, which we are breathing while we're going on the dive inside of the chamber. And so that means we can actually, for instance, at 3 ATA, we would have already 270% of oxygen versus the 21% which we are breathing here. And so the most chambers are like going to 2 ATA, and so then you have already 180% of oxygen. So this is when I got asked recently, why can you not just do more breath work to heal yourself? Well, because you cannot breathe in 180% of oxygen just by breath work. Come on. Oh wow, 28 minutes. Gotta push a little bit through. So, if we are looking at this, the gas is compressed under depth, and they made a really interesting study. It's like 50, 60 years ago. An Italian researcher, he made this study, and that he let pigs live without blood. So he took a hyperbaric chamber, pumped it up to 3 ATA, and had their pigs inside, and he took all of the blood out and replaced it with a plasma-like liquid, and so they wouldn't have any more red blood cells to transport the oxygen. And then he had almost 100% oxygen inside of the chamber. and the pigs, they were still able to survive for hours. And so normally they should be suffocating within a very short time because of a lack of oxygen. And he proved that they could survive for hours and hours without any red blood cells in the body, proving and giving us the basement of the hyperbaric therapy and the medicine approach which we have nowadays about it, that actually we are pushing the oxygen directly inside of the tissues of the brain, of the joints, and in places where we normally never can reach it, and this is bypassing the red blood cells. Oh wow, I have 5 minutes on the clock here, so I will speed through a little bit of the slides. So this is some of the investigational indications which which are right now being researched on hyperbarics. And for me, for instance, the most important one was the inflammatory bowel disease and gut disease, which I had. And so I was going in the end on 280 hyperbaric sessions, something around 21,000 minutes of hyperbaric sessions in the last 2 years, which were actually then starting to really start to heal the inflammation, which is what it's exactly done. What the research is showing, that we can heal inflammation. If we are continuously doing hyperbaric treatments, we can reach and heal an inflamed stage, which we normally can never reach by normal ways of therapeutic areas, because you have here just really all of the oxygen and inflammatory effects pushed even to the most remote areas of joints, your spine, your brain, or in my case, the gut, which needed the healing. And it was interesting since also my need for hyperbaric and diving went much more normal once I actually had my gut healed and the inflammation was actually healed. So it's something which I can testify myself to very personally, that if you are staying on a very large number on hyperbaric sessions, that you're actually benefiting from this. Otherwise, it helps also with constriction of blood vessels, and you're obviously saving the tissue, and you have the decrease in inflammation and pain and some of the other effects. Since I was afraid of this, that I would go too much into my personal story and that then I'm out of time. It's happened. Well, so we are having here one of the studies which is very known of that hyperbaric therapy, if you're having over 60 sessions, is lengthening your telomere, something which is very known. And this is also showing you how often you should do normally hyperbaric sessions. The breakthrough zone in research is showing you 60 sessions, but what happens after that, we only find out by personal experience and stories like mine, where I'm right now at 280 sessions, and I can actually notice, okay, there's quite a more drastic effect there, which we never will see in university research, because such studies would be just too expensive and too unreasonable to be managed. So that's why I will skip some slides for you. But I want to show you, I think, 2 last slides. Something is really noticeable in HBOT, what you should be aware of. So OxyHelp is the one which I was trusting in, and most of the experts, like what we had here, Eddie Hall and Paris Hilton and many of the other, like Gary Brecker, are choosing them to work with. And that actually had a reason. And I want to actually give you maybe the #1 reason as the last slide. I promise, Martin, don't be mad on me. It's last slide now then coming up here. But some of the things which you should really take care of is actually the ventilation. So what especially, I'm going diving to, up to 75 meters right now, so 8.5 atmospheres, which is a level which is pretty dangerous, and roughly only 2,000 people in the world go diving to that depth. And there is something which we notice, which is always dangerous for us, is the CO2. This is the most likely thing to kill us when going diving. And the same problem we can have in chambers which are wrongfully built. And so OxyHelp has actually noticed the same problem, that if you are having a CO2 buildup inside of the chamber, then you are having, in the end, a CO2 hyperbaric treatment and not anymore an oxygen hyperbaric treatment. And the CO2 would cause you to be narcotic, to feel tired, to feel dizzy, to cause inflammation in the body, which are all the opposite effects than what we're trying to reach in the hyperbaric. So the most important part when choosing a chamber is having enough ventilation to have the CO2 pushed out. And so OxyHelp has done that. That's why most of the experts are working with them, because we are using not like this 80 to 100 liter per minute on like a mono chamber to actually push out the CO2, but around 280 liters per minute to push out much more of the CO2 even while pressurizing. And this is still while remaining safe and having more comfort and having actually also less of a discomfort in your body. But I'm seeing that my time for today is off, so I will be thanking you for the attention and open you my last slide to, if you want to get in contact with me, actually being able to do that. So, at least you saw what I still wanted to show you. But it's sometimes with our speeches like this. And it doesn't go. It's getting stuck. Well,
as you're getting the slide up, Hagen, I just want to say thank you very much. Just a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Can we get, please do get the last slide up so people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, that would be nice. Now it's working again.
We're seeing these lovely pictures as well.
Yeah. So if you want to get in contact, then over there, please, to over OxyHelp or over my channels. And if you have some questions, I'll be behind the stage. And thank you so much for the attention again.
Thank you so much, Hagen. Thank you. Thank you.